We have a speaker, Mike Johnson, that we all, by the way, I elected him. I voted for that man. So I have every right to be standing here. And so next week, I am going to be calling this motion to vacate. Absolutely calling it.
This morning, Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene finally announced that she will, in fact, be making good on her threats to file a motion to vacate House Speaker Mike Johnson. I don't know if you heard, but she actually voted for him and now has soured on Mike Johnson. But Greene already knows that this motion will go nowhere. And that's because Hakeem Jeffries has promised Johnson that Democrats will vote to protect him from these threats, protect him from being ousted as the Republican House Speaker who managed to secure tens of billions of dollars in military funding for wars abroad. Now, that is the heart of the issue that Marjorie Taylor Greene and the America First MAGA Republicans in Congress have with Mike Johnson. The fact that he was willing to pass that bill, willing to pass tens of billions of dollars in military funding to wars abroad. Now, first, let's actually watch a little more of Greene's speech if you can stomach her. Let's watch.
I voted for Mike Johnson because his voting record before he became speaker was conservative. He voted against funding Ukraine. He was solidly pro-life. He voted to secure the border. He voted to fight against Democrats, fight against the witch hunt against President Trump. But once he became speaker, he has become a man that none of us recognize. I can't wait to see Democrats go out and support a Republican speaker and have to go home to their primaries and have to run for Congress again, having supported a Republican speaker, a Christian conservative. I think that'll play well. I'm excited about it. And I also can't wait to see my Republican conference show their cards and show who we are, because voters deserve it. Is the Republican Party, have they finally learned their lesson? Have they finally heard the message from voters back at home? Are they willing to actually fight, or are they going to just keep going along to get along?
Pausing here to deliver some honest truth as we do in our news coverage as well. TYT is facing challenges, guys, as the entire industry is. You know who could make the difference? You. If you hit the join button below, it's gonna make all the difference and keep us in business. We appreciate you, thank you.
John, I hate to admit it, I agree with some of what Marjorie Greene said there. So, look, I think that she's right when she states that voters in both political parties are getting real tired of this uniparty climate that we deal with whenever it comes to defense funding, whenever it comes to, resources that we funnel to defense contractors through military aid toward wars abroad, right? Whether it's Israel, Ukraine, all of that. With Ukraine, the thing that I'm kind of frustrated by is there seems to be no end in sight and no strategy. It's just an open-ended, we're gonna keep sending hundreds of billions of dollars to this war effort, as, by the way, Ukraine is now losing more and more territory to Russia. So is there another way? And what is the plan? It doesn't seem like there is a plan.
Well, in their defense, they hadn't gotten aid for months and months and months.
They got a lot of aid from other countries. Previously. And previously.
To some extent, and I would say in the early year and a half of the war, they did quite well. But then once I think the vast majority of the American aid dried up and Russia put more and more money and threw more and more people into the war effort, became harder. But I agree. I think that they're coming out of the 20 years of Afghanistan and Iraq. There's a general distaste to this. I definitely think that it is the duty of people that care about this stuff to differentiate that not every conflict is exactly the same. I mean, even Marjorie Greene is capable of doing that. She supports military aid to Israel still. She may not have voted for it this time, but she has spoken out. She has done press releases specifically saying that she has voted for it in the past and that she supports it. She said she was incredibly proud that we had helped fund Iron Dome and that sort of thing. Maybe she's had a total change of heart or whatever, but some conflict she's okay with.
Let me be clear. I'm super proud that we funded Iron Dome, and I'm happy to fund Iron Dome, right? That is a defensive military capability that we provided for Israel to keep Israelis safe, and that is a good thing. I'm not against that. I'm more referring to offensive military weaponry, which, especially in the case of Israel, and especially given the context of how this war has been carried out in Gaza, I myself am very uncomfortable with, right? And so even if it's a Republican, even if it's someone in the other party, I am totally happy to join forces or, align myself with individuals who are like-minded in wanting to either condition aid or really put a halt to some of the aid that's being sent. Especially, there's a story that's totally ignored. I hadn't seen it until today, even though it was reported 6 days ago. There's a real problem with like teacher shortages all across the country, and now municipalities are really struggling with budget deficits and they're laying teachers off, even in the middle of teacher shortages. We have so many problems in America that money could go toward, including building more housing to effectively respond to the housing shortage and crisis. We need more resources in some of these cities that are grappling with the migrant crisis and have not received enough support from the federal government to adequately respond to it. There's all these problems. And you have this uniparty in regard to military support to other countries in our Congress right now. And so when it comes to that issue, any politician who's gonna speak out against it, they get a nod from me.
Yeah, I guess if on a very specific, clearly defined thing we agreed, I'd be fine with that. I'm not willing to take a clearly defined thing and then say she's anti-war, because she's not. She might be against aid to Ukraine in this particular case. Does she want to dramatically cut the US military budget so that money could go towards the things you're talking about?
That'd be great. I don't think she's against. I don't think she's in favor.
I don't think that she wants to.
She's not in favor of that, but she's one of the few people in Congress, John, that wants to pump the brakes on what has been an issue that doesn't even get debated in Congress, really. Like, this is the first time in my adult life where I have witnessed members of Congress question military funding.
Sure, look, and I agree. I just generally prefer people like a Ro Khanna or a Bernie Sanders who speak about these issues with some knowledge about the region and consistent principles across multiple conflicts, rather than she feels to me like a person that doesn't care what happens in Ukraine, so she wants to cut off the funding. But she also wanted to impeach Joe Biden for getting us out of Afghanistan. She wanted to continue that war.
On so many
she
issues.
Literally advocates for invading northern Mexico, and she would not cut the US military budget. And so look, if she wants to vote, to cut off a certain type of aid that we disagree with, then take her vote on that. I think that makes all the sense. No, I agree, and I agree with you on that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Listen. Every single sitting member of Congress, Democrat, Republican, has stances on issues I disagree with, right? With Republicans, I disagree with them on more issues than Democrats. But again, if there are ways in which members of the two parties could maybe work together to push us through to a new era where we're not just like by default providing tens of billions of dollars for wars abroad, I'm in favor of that. Now, there is something that's worth getting into though, because the head of this America First MAGA movement is Donald Trump, right? And Donald Trump supported Mike Johnson securing those bills and sending tens of billions of dollars in military aid to Ukraine and Israel. So RNC chair Mike Whatley, who Trump handpicked, even tried to talk Green out of triggering the motion to vacate yesterday. She was confronted about Trump during her press conference this morning. Let's take a look at how she responded.
Former President Trump has said positive things about the speaker and has said he doesn't favor a motion to vacate. Aren't you defying the former president's wishes?
Absolutely not. I'm the biggest supporter of President Trump, and that's why I proudly wear this MAGA hat. I fight for his agenda every single day, and that's why I'm fighting here against my own Republican conference to fight harder against the Democrats. Mike Johnson has fully funded the Department of Justice that wants to put President Trump in jail, giving him a death sentence.
It's not a death sentence. What are you talking about?
Never mind. Never mind.
Does she have a hat that explains that thing?
I take the compliments back, okay? But you're not fighting for his agenda, because his agenda is to now protect Mike Johnson, the very person you're trying to, okay.
Well, and like she's like, yeah, Mike Johnson supports the DOJ. Yeah, but are you saying that Trump doesn't know that? He still seems to want Mike Johnson in charge, so you are defying him. Which, by the way, you're allowed to do that. Well, I was gonna say a thinking human being. You're an adult human being. You can defy him if you want, but when you defy him, that's what you're doing. And putting on a hat does not get you out of that.
Oh, John.
These are our leaders.
But can you at least admit that she makes a good point when she refers to the Democrats in Congress who are now going to vote or are now pledging to protect Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson, right? How their constituents would feel about that.
Yeah.
Because we heard a lot of fear mongering about Mike Johnson from Democrats.
Yeah, Mike Johnson's really bad. The issue is that at the same time, she doesn't articulate who would replace him. She says she has ideas, but she's not saying who they are. So look, the Democrats would say, well, having a speaker at all at least allows government to function, whereas not having a speaker means the government literally doesn't function between now and the election. And I think a lot of people might say, well, is it even better to have the government function? And I honestly, at this point, I don't know.
What is the government, like what is Congress even doing?
Theoretically, it passed the aid, I guess, and some of the aid went to Gaza. That's good, I suppose.
Let's put it to a screeching halt. I don't care. Like, oh no.
Well, I want the aid to go to Gaza, at least I would say that. And
sure.
And I don't support, like aid for wars could mean us invading Iraq, which is one thing. Allowing Ukraine to not be utterly annihilated, I think, is a different thing.
All right.
We can have a debate about each of these.
There are so many elements that we're not going to get to for this story. I apologize, Taylor, who produced it. We got to end on this because we're running out of time. I'm just going to say this one final thing, okay? The few billion-dollar, aid package to Gaza is laughable when at the same time there's an additional $17 billion that gets sent to Israel so they can continue dropping 2,000-pound bombs on civilians.
I don't want this to be passed.
So please spare me but there's humanitarian aid involved, right? So people can cite that humanitarian aid as justification for giving Israel another $17 billion for a war in which they're conducting all sorts of war crimes in. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting.
Well, I hope you don't think that I'm justifying it.
No, you're not
obviously
justifying
I don't
it,
want that, but also you have a starvation crisis.
Citing it is so insulting. Like to me, it's insulting. It's like, no, but there's actually some good things in this bill, like the aid to Gazans. Is that money going to rebuild the Gaza Strip, which has been completely freaking leveled by the bombs that we've supplied Israel?
No, I don't want us to support those bombs, but I also know that hundreds of thousands of people are theoretically on the brink of starvation right now.
We'd be way better off if that package didn't pass at all. Honestly, that's how I feel about it. But
maybe
we don't get a say because we're just American voters that don't get listened to by our elected lawmakers.
I mean, if we're talking about the moral outcome of one action versus the other, I would love to poll the people of Gaza. I don't know exactly what they would say.
Right. I'm pretty sure they would not be in favor of supplying Israel with more of the bombs that have devastated them,
but again,
wiped out their entire families and all of that.
The question is, do you get nothing or both?
How does the aid get into the Gaza Strip?
You're acting as if I support the blockade, which I obviously don't. The weapons now, the weapons previously, which I obviously don't.
The point I'm trying to make is that the inclusion of the aid to Gaza, which was nothing compared to the amount of money that's going to be provided to Israel. Like, I mean, it's a joke compared to what's being supplied to Israel. That is specifically included, so people can argue, no, this is actually a great package because it's going to provide humanitarian aid to Gaza. Okay, how exactly is the humanitarian aid, which isn't going to be enough, number one, going to enter the Gaza Strip? Has the United States adjudicated that situation with the Israeli government, which they refuse to hold accountable ever? That's the problem I have with it.
Well, again, I'm not using it to argue that it's a great package because I don't believe it was a great package. And I also don't think that the aid should have to go through the blockaded land entries in Israel. I think that the plan to build the pier is wildly expensive and is going to take a very long time, but at least that would provide some independent ability to get the aid in.
No, the aid would still have to be monitored by the IDF. They would still have to approve it.
It's possible that with us controlling that location that could potentially be expedited, I think would be the argument.
Hey, thanks for watching that video. We really appreciate it, guys. And we appreciate it if you become members because that allows us to be independent, honest, progressive, all the things that you don't get from corporate media. And all of that is because of you guys. Hit the join button below and become one of us. Become a Young Turk.